let's have a little look at house kit. So we're all new to this. So basically two parts to it. I'm not yet going to open this because this one has been completed and all done, and there's a few extra presents in there, a few extra wings and dings that you don't want to see quite yet. So we've got the outside kit, known as the CCE, customer connection enclosure, and we've got the inside bit known as the FWO, which is the fibre wall outlet. I like to show this to the customers because your neighbours and friends in the village are all customers, but I like to show them this how. Right, there you go. So it's quite good when you go into the house, once you've had the chat about where do you want it, where do the service, this is to show them what it's all about. So this is the FWO, or the socket for the house, but really it's FWO, fibre wall outlet. Different to BT, you think, well, where's the plug? Because there is no plug there. The plug is here at the bottom. If you take the lid off, it gives a bit more explanation. So here, this is what it's all about. That is so tiny. That is your primary fibre. It's tiny, but believe it or not, there's about 1 metre of that in there. Also hidden in here, the orange in the background, that's the secondary fibre. So I believe, contrary to BT, we always put 2 fibres in just for the problems, anything that might come up, just in case there's any issues, or for future proofing in case we wanted a second connection. We could actually add a second connection to there. This bit here, that really is almost like a glorified socket coming down to there. That little slot there mirrors that, and this is, sorry, that's a plug. This is the socket. So that's like a little plug, slides into here, and that's like a double-sided socket. So the matching one, if we take that off the bottom, would be to go from there to the router, and there will be a matching socket, the same sort of cord that would carry on, and that will go to the router. So that's our fibre wall outlet. A couple of aspects with this though is this hole at the back, which is where you're going to be going through the wall to the outside. It's not central. So you need to be aware of quite where that is, and also the drill holes that you would use to secure it to the wall. That one's lovely, but look where the other one is. But with a bit of practice, you can get around it. Blue tack is fabulous. There's one tip that I use quite a bit. So sighting this, that's where we're going to have the hole going through the wall. We're going to drill the hole through the wall to the outside, going slightly downhill if we're going through to the outside. So any water that gets into the hole is going to cast out water retention. The type of houses has an implication on this. So people with modern houses, sometimes it's actually better and less disruptive to come outside in, especially if they've been rendered. But it's very complicated on the measurements. Getting the measurements right when you're coming blind from the outside of a house to the inside can be a little bit exciting. So you do need to survey everything, and always with that, so sighting of it, I think it's quite important to make sure you use a reference point. So the corner of a window, be very careful that window ledge, if there's a ledge on the other side, might be at a different height. And the same with the edge. So you've got to open the window, double check, measure from inside and outside, check that it's centimetre right to drill. But on some houses, so I've done some houses recently on a housing estate that was built probably in the 70s, late 60s, early 70s. That one, the outside render on most of them is a bit delicate, shall we say. And the first couple of houses we drilled in the traditional way, inside to out. We had the customer holding a piece of decking against the wall to try and protect the render, but we still, on 2 of them, lost quite a fair lump of render. Now we repaired it and it was all up to giddy-boo, and you wouldn't know the difference now because you're hiding that behind quite a big box. So you've got a bit of space, it's not so bad. But we've discovered that doing it the other way on, you've got 2 centimetres of render, you've got a cinder brick, which is black, it's weird, like pumice stone, really heavy, quite hard work to drill. Then you've got your cavity, you've got a second brick, which often is a sandy texture, quite soft, and every house is different, they're all built different, but on a lot of those, all the interior plaster work was battened off. So you've got a second cavity. So if you're drilling from the outside, you're going through, once you know you're into that second brick, you do it nice and gently. Once you get the second cavity, turn the hammer off quick and you just slowly go through the plasterboard on the last bit. And I've had so many customers, I'll call them, friends, neighbours, that are sat there staring at the wall thinking, is it going to come? Or they're trying to do it subtly because they don't want to appear that they're keeping too much of an eye on it. And all of a sudden, you get the drill bit coming through the wall. And wow, have you done that? That works, in that instance, works quite well. Drilling technique. Shall I? Right, so I've had a couple of mentions on drill size, etc. I will show you what I've got. That is my favourite drill, if I can get it through. That's an 8mm. Right. So, because what I'm going to do nearly always on most of the standard houses is use a little bit of 7mm. We've got loads of this. This is what you're going to get in big drums. So I use that to line the hole so it goes perfectly. There's only 1mm tolerance. It just fits beautifully in there. Bit of silicone on the outside and it's great. It's good fit. You can't get 8mm in very long drills successfully. It does, even this 8mm, it bends a bit. So I then to nearly always then go up to 10mm. I think you said... I think I've got 10mm. 10mm, I think 10mm's okay. I know one or two people started doing this with 12 and 14, but it's just far, far too big. Unless you're in the type of house that's got maybe rubble in the middle, where you might be considering putting some copper pipe. It's like that microbore pipe that they used to use for central heating. You put some copper pipe through as an additional protection in the middle. I'm 50-50 as to whether copper pipe is as good as using this, because when you actually think about it, that's pretty strong. There's 2mm coating in there. The downside sometimes in some of those really old walls, you get a lot of vermin, mice live in the wall. So that's my longest one at the moment. And that's in a 10. This one, when you get a bit of pressure on it and it's going, there is a bit of flex, and it does start to go at a bit of a funny angle sometimes. So those are my favourite drills, and probably my next favourite tool to go with my drills, which I would recommend, is an electrician's fishing rod. I don't know why I call it fishing. I think I call it fishing for fishing in cavities, not for fish. But these things screw together. I think that's going to be longer than a metre, isn't it? That's going to be 1.5 metre. They'll screw the next one onto it, the next one to that, and they use it for going down cavities. But I find it absolutely brilliant for doing most of these jobs, because the thread of that fits perfectly into 7mm conduit. He said, actually, it does fit in 5mm conduit as well, because that's got a very similar inside bore. But then you see, if you tug on that, it's got a really good... Right. So when I'm putting this through a wall, this is really quite good. You've drilled through. Yeah. Now we've drilled through slightly downhill if we're heading out. Yeah. If you had some of these strange houses like I was describing, you might be coming in, you're going to drill the other way. Going out, in reality, going out probably is the best, because you've got a prime choice of deciding where it's going to go. And in most people's walls, they want to be along the side of some sockets, or it wants to be behind that bookcase that they've decided they like to keep the router on, or a cabinet, or whatever it happens to be. So in most instances, this electrics in this fine office, porta cabin, are set at the modern height of 50 centimetres. So most modern things around about 2,000 and above. 50 centimetres is where the electric comes in the back. So that's set at 50. So you'll see actually 50 is about 2/3 of the way up the socket, or 3/5 or whatever. Yeah. If you're in something that's sort of 1990s, and 1980s, 1990s, maybe even slightly before that, it's nearly always 30. And more, I think some people say it's to do with floods, it's flood prevention. I think a lot of it really is also, though, it's disabled. I mean, I'm a bit arthritic, but I can reach that.
Yeah.
Down there is just that little bit, a little bit too far. We're not governed on what height, so we can tinker with that a little bit. But if it happened to be in this room, it would look quite nice if, say, it was there. I would avoid going normally, let's ignore this conduit, I would ignore below, because 9 times out of 10 the electrics come that way. Sometimes it's come from above. Very occasionally it does come from the side, which gets a bit more problematic. So coming from the side maybe isn't always, it's quite rare. It's important then to test the area, so I do always have, I've got 2 and I sometimes use both of them. I've got a Bosch one which is quite expensive, a wall tester, and this one tests for metal and electric, so it'll flash different colours. That's electric. If I get, where's a bit of metal, I'll get a constant. So that's a Bosch one. They're not foolproof, they do go wrong. I think sometimes they don't always like being in a damp environment. This is a different one. It'll test for blocks, it'll test for depths of electric, and you scan it on the wall for a period. It does like a little countdown, say it's ready, and then you bring it across that. I've got it set on the wrong setting for, not on for electrics. But I think that's quite important to test everything. Never take it for granted. Pipes, you get some strange pipes running in funny places sometimes, so test for metal as well. So I'll describe why I'm using this. So we've drilled through the wall. There's 2 options with the wall. You've got, on most domestic houses, relatively new, you've got about 30 to 32 centimetres of depth. On an older wall, you may well know that you're going to have 50 centimetres. You can get up to 100, some. You know you've got a lot more depth. It does give you one extra advantage sometimes, having that extra depth, is that you can choose a little bit to vary where you're going to come out. Because we might say, right, we're going to do it in here, we're drilling from there through, we come out the other side, well, we measure, we go running around the outside, oh God, there's a drain pipe, or there's a burglar alarm, or there's the conduit coming down for the Sky TV. Or the worst one, the one I had was a cast iron grill that was for the lady of the house grew some prize roses, and it had to get it below. Luckily that was 70 centimetres thick, so by going down at 45 degrees, if it's 70 centimetres there, 45 degrees, you're buying yourself 70 centimetres lower. The only thing is it was testing the drill to the max, because so 70 by 70 squared by squared added together squared, what is it, Pythagoras? It's about a metre. So it was a bit tight, it was a bit close. But you've got that advantage, so survey inside and outside and get your point of reference and go outside and see where it's coming out. And I always just go around and I stick bits of tape at everything. So people go, sometimes I've forgotten it, and a couple of days later I've gone past the house and I thought, oh God, there's that piece. Because I normally have, this is somebody else's, this is brown. I normally was red tape. And I've got these little dots of red tape all over the wall. That's the outside box. I'll just go into a bit of detail before. We've drilled our hole through, and what I use this to go through, and I'm pulling with that my bit of pipe. So actually what I'd normally do is I would actually probably put this through. If I've gone from the inside, I will poke it through, go to the outside and screw on my bit of conduit, and I'm going to draw it back into the house. Now in the house, I only want it to be just coming to the inside of the wall. I want it to be recessed. I don't want that. Are you with me? Although I'm going to have to cut it off or do something else with it. I want it to be very slightly recessed, probably be 2 or 3 millimetres. If it's sticking out like there, and we've got this cord coming through it, it's then going to do a right angle turn, and that's where you're going to break your fibre. So I'm using that as a guide. I've got that as my wall point, and then I'm going to run round to the outside, and on the outside wall I've got here, and I'm going to assess quite where to cut it there to fit with that. Now in this instance, I'm thinking, right, well hang on, there's some nice bits of render here, and there's a black pebble dash, and it's sticking out. I think, well, I'm going to need a little bit of space, so I'm going to cut it off at about 6 or 7 mil out. Are you with me? So I'm going to draw that out of the wall, get my snips, which I have put here. I'm going to get my snips, and I'm going to snip it off there at that point and make the gamble. So that's cut. So then but I've drawn this out of the wall. This is wiggling around inside the house, and the poor old lady in the house is thinking, what on earth's going on here? But I've got this pulled outside the wall, because what I'm going to do then, as I'm sighting this, I'm doing everything with a 6mm drill. So what I do, I cheat the inside of there, and I've got some instructions that I'll give you out later, but I think the instructions actually have got the wrong size drill bit, or they did do at one point. It might have been corrected now. But if you drill it with the 6mm, your standard 6mm, which is what you're going to be drilling to put the plugs in for all the other holes, if you drill it out with a 6mm and then ream it very slightly, you can get your bit of, you can get your little bit of 7mm, and you can get it, it just pushes into the back, and it's stuck in the back, and it wants to be just and so in, not coming out that far. It wants to be just into that little hole in the back. But also, if it's just inside, it'll draw it out of the wall and out. Are you with me? So you're coming in and out of the wall as you're drawing that away. Gives you the chance then to sight where you're going to drill for here, drill it in, get the plug in, maybe make the first fasten, and then line it up for the next ones. You might have to take that one off again to line those up, but it gets you the chance to sight everything. Some people make a template. I never had much luck with those. Templates often made of wood and they tend to decay. It's fine if you can make a template out of something metal. I believe there's one that's got a tripod, 3 arms on it, metal piece. I can't think what they use it for. Right, so that's that. Screws. All these kits come with a standard bag of screws. That's the one for the outside. Personally, I don't use what I'm given. What we're given is what the manufacturers have sorted out, and it's not very good. We should talk to the boss, because that's the plugs you get, and I'm afraid they're absolute rubbish. Yeah. So either A, buy some proper raw plugs that have got the no return on, or B, and especially in our area, if it's a posh house and it's limestone, you get these, because then they've got a nice grey end on them rather than a bright red, so it looks tasteful, if you know what I mean. But that one expand, it cracks open, that one won't come out at all. Those ones, slightly stuck, and sometimes the whole thing comes out the wall. It comes with a variety of screws and bits and pieces. I actually quite like using these screws that you get with the, this is for the outside kit. I like using those screws with the inside, and on the outside I just buy in some decent quality, slightly longer wood screws. These screws aren't really quite long enough. The time you're going through here, and I'll show you in a minute, quite often there's render and some variation on the wall. It might be limestone, it might be like you said, the sandstone, where it's not quite straight, it's got little ripples in it. So one of the other little tips I shall share with you, once you've got your holes drilled, your plugs in, you line it up, you get your first screw coming out, you think, oh good, it's away off the wall, it's away because of that little lump of stone. Chip that off with a hammer or a little chisel. But one of the other things is you think, oh right, well hang on, there's a gap there of so many millimetres. So get your piece of, because there's always got spare bits of this and you've just cut some off. So you get your piece of conduit, you think, oh right, I need that much. Get your snips, you need that much, and there you go. So what have we done there? I've made a washer. Are you with me? And especially this size goes well with, I think these screws are 4.5. They'll go well with a size 4 or a 4.5. They won't fit very well with, I think these are size 5. But then that, you can almost get it so far by hand, and you can see there, that forms a little washer. As you tighten it up and it starts to engage into the plug, that slightly contracts and or it pushes the plug deeper in, but it looks so neat because you have a nice neat, and it spaces it and makes it nice and solid and rigid, So that's a tip. The other bits and pieces that come with it, let's open up a completed box. Now this could confuse you a little bit because this one has also got demonstrated the fibre that will be blown in. Now initially you're just going to get it set with this socket, the FWO, on the inside of the house, the cord fed carefully through the wall, coming into here, through the hole there, and it's always wrapped clockwise. This one is a little bit more complicated, purely because it's been finished. Okay, so this is the outside box on the outside wall of the house, the CCE, Customer Connection Enclosure. Rather complicated because everything's been done in here, but this is the cord that's coming through from the inside of the house. This is always wrapped in clockwise, and that carries on round, and then this bit coming in the bottom here is the fibre, the network fibre. This is coming in from the network, that goes the other way round, and you can see here there's a couple of the fibres here. They're stripped off and they're joined together, fused, and that's fused here. The primary fibre is joined, the secondary fibre is left just for the time being in case they ever need it in the future. So this is fused, it's stripped, the coating, that blue coating is taken off, it's then cleaved with a diamond cleaver, it's put in a fusing machine to fuse or splice it together, and then there's this little protective protector. It's got a little metal bar in it that's put in an oven just to give it some protection, and that's held in there. And that's really it on there. We put these little sponges in the bottom just to stop the slugs and snails and spiders climbing in, and that is what looks like the inside of the box that you're going to see on the wall. These kits come with 5 meters of cord. We like to keep at least 2 meters in there. You wanted to take this through some sort of undercroft porch or some other, or a very thick wall, and have your socket slightly further away, you've got up to 3 meters. My example with that, one of the houses in Levens, it was coming up, we were using BT conduit to bring the fibre up right by the front door, but we can't go through a door frame, there was no way in. The only way we could do it really was to go through into the garage, went along the garage wall by 1.5 meters, 2 meters, and then drilled back through into the house, right in the main hallway. Brilliant actually in the house, because these are 3-storey houses. It actually put the socket there for the router slam bang right in the middle of the house, so it's going to go up, down, it's going to get maximum Wi-Fi penetration. It's brilliant, but that was going to go in and along and out again before we put that in. That obviously therefore needed quite a lot more extra conduit to run it through, but that was just so there is some adjustment. That one that's completed, you see here what they do then when they blow the fibre. You guys might not have actually seen any fibre yet, help yourself to that. That one on this side has got, this is slightly different, this is not a normal kit because this has actually got a different coloured fibre. It's got the blue one, which is our primary fibre, always as blue as the primary, but normally we use orange as our secondary fibre. This particular one was bought when we ran short, and it's got green as the secondary, but that's the 2 fibres, and that's what it's coming through in. That's blown through the network system, coming up here, with a little metal lump on the end that actually, if you're helping when they come and blow, it's fascinating, and you can hear it sometimes just rattling through the system, and it rattles up, pops up, and they call that a bullet. That rattles out here, it'll come spewing out at high speed because they're using compressed air. You get a couple of meters, you tell them stop. That gets wrapped the other way, so you've put this one that way, that goes the other way, and then it's like a complex knitting pattern, which actually someone's got slightly wrong on this one, because that slack should not be there like that, and it's been welded together and fused there. That's the fuse protector. Just to reassure, because there's quite a bit to take in, as setting up as a team, as volunteers to do the house kit fitting, we would come up and we'd do a full day with you, and we'd normally say, right, come on, give us 4 different houses, maybe preferably slightly different. Maybe one's got, you mentioned block sandstone, maybe one's got limestone, maybe one's a little bungalow, that are different in enough ways that we say, right, come on, and we'll come round with you and we'll fit together 4 houses. Or more, if we've got the time. And then at least then we're giving you some proper hands-on training. This is an introduction. So we've fed it through. Probably the bit that we've not covered on there is getting the in feed connected. So also, let's move my little box of goodies out of the way. This orange obviously has gone through somebody's front garden. It's come off the road or from the fields, through that garden wall, under that fence, through their lawn or shrubs or wherever it happens to be, and it's got close to the house. And that's what we're asking normally householders to do, or with the help of yourselves volunteers, or maybe as a bit of a get the team together. Some people have used landscape gardeners to come in as a contractor to help dig it with our supervision to get them going, so we can trust them, if you know what I mean. We get that close to the house, but to come up the wall to the bottom of here has to come up black. The orange isn't UV stable, so it's got to come up the wall to the box in black 7mm. So that needs junctioning before it gets there. So, wrecking the boss's office. I'll just quickly show you a junction. The black can go through the ground a little way, so it's orange in the ground. When you junction it, it's best to do it on the straight and possibly a little bit away from the house, just whatever circumstances suit. So what I normally do is I would dig from here down the side of the house. I might dig up to 9 inches, maybe even a foot deep, and a little bit away, just have space to play. I would take the black down the side, I would fasten it with P-clips, which I'll show you P-clips in a second, to the wall, and I'd have it curling lightly, coming down into the ground. I'll have it curling along, and I will probably junction it about there, a little bit away. I'll put a slate, I might put a little bit of soil on around it, and then I might put a slate or a flat limestone or whatever happens to come to hand, just to give it some sort of protection and easy access as well. I probably wouldn't fully fill that in until the fiber's been blown. These junctions are fabulous. I love these. So I'll show you one of these. These are great. The 7mm orange, which is always in the ground, it's not UV stable, so we always connect that to black to come outside the ground, to come up the house. It's slightly more stable and slightly more rigid. What we tend to have then, we have a special connector. Brilliant piece of kit. It's held together in a little tiny box. This is the kit. That will slide onto the back, push it home. You can just about see in the little window there that it's all sealed, and it's even more obvious then when you put the orange in. If you pull, that's locked, doesn't come, but there is actually, just in case we ever need to, there is a little by pushing the green thing there, that'll release it. When we have it connected, just to give it that last bit of protection, the little cover has 2 little flanges. Those little flanges just squeeze in the middle between that green to stop anyone being able to release it. So that's it, it's locked for good now. And that's how we connect 7mm conduits. What I will probably do is fasten it with P-clips. This is a P-clip. These are worth a fortune. Do we have any of these at the... We do. So you can sometimes get these from Balm. I suspect actually sometimes they buy the wrong size. Size 28, so this is a bag of them. They come from CEF, City Electrical Factors, is one of the best places I found to get them. They were about £10.50 a bag of 50, plus VAT. So they were about 20-something pence each. They're now £13.80 plus VAT. So they're now 33 pence each. But that's copper. That's why. It's a precious metal. Size 28, offset to the side. So you need to plan your line. That's again where sometimes using the magic stick is quite good to lean against the top. If you've got this open, you can sometimes just slot it in somehow down the front. You can check it with a spirit level if you've got one. Sometimes stand back and get your mate to say, well, hang on, it might be right by the spirit level, but that down pipe next to it isn't straight. So let's get it to match the down pipe, or something like that. P-clips, I would probably put one within 1 inch to 2 inches below, just to hold it there, and that's the most important bit, to hold it. We've had a few people who've done these and not put any clips on at all. What's fun, all it's holding it there is just one little tie clip. It's just not going to hold it. So put a P-clip there, put another one there, maybe even consider putting one underground. If the wall's continuing and continuing out, just consider putting one a little bit underground. It's copper, so it's not going to decay, but it's at least going to hold it firm before. So that's underground, the ground level's here, it's come down, it's just curving out at a nice gentle angle, and then that's its straight line where we've connected it to the orange and away. One last thing I think maybe to cover would be non-standards, because I had a couple of comments about maybe running it a longer distance. In some instances, you've got houses where the edge of the house is nowhere near where you need the Wi-Fi to be, where you need the router to be. So there's various options, I guess. Really, you could put the router in and extend it with Ethernet to another sender or to another distribution of some sort, a switch. You could put it into the attic. A lot of people in more modern houses have a system going into the attic, and in the attic they call it a switch. I don't know why they call it a switch, because actually it's like a junction box. It's a mini junction box, and you put as many. You get one with 4 ports, 8 ports, 12, 20 ports, and then normally that redistributes it to the house. That's one method. That's the perfect method. But then we all have to. We don't all want to take up our plaster and rip it apart. We're really wanting to try and use Wi-Fi if we can, but Wi-Fi won't get beyond everything. So an Aga can destroy it, a microwave. There's a tale this morning of somebody where they had the router with a couple of family photographs in front, but they were that sort of gilted silver gilted picture frames, and they said that actually they were stood there with doing the speed test and only getting 30 megabytes, whereas when they moved the photographs apart, it goes to 200, 300 megabytes. And he says the weird things it can do, why it's a dark art. But non-standards, this 7mm conduit cannot be used internally. Health and Safety Executive will say that this, in a fire, will give off noxious fumes that could be danger to life. So we're not allowed to use this internally. Its alternative then is we have 5mm. Now this is fire stable. Somebody this morning said it's fireproof. It's not fireproof, it's just fire stable. So it's not going to give off fumes. I believe in a fire it expands a bit. It's like a foam, turns into a bit of a foam. So that's the 5mm. So if you did need to route it a long way within a house, and it's exactly a bungalow, we wanted to get from the outside wall where we could get to, and the gentleman was going to turn 3 bedrooms into 2, right where we wanted to bring it in. Couldn't really do it. A lot of work was going to go ahead. So in the end we said, right, hang on. We went up the side of the house in 7mm, up to the attic level, just through into the attic, swapped to 5mm, ran that through the attic, down through an airing cupboard, popped out at the back of the airing cupboard, right next to his widescreen TV, and he was absolutely happy as Larry. And that's just an alternatives can be considered. Sometimes just give us a shout and ring, and we can talk them over. So, but that cannot be used inside. If you needed to go from this box, and this has to be a normal height, but you needed to go higher up, instead of coming through the back, you could come out of the bottom here and do a nice simple curl and go up. And I've had 1 or 2 have maybe gone through an air brick, or I prefer to drill it myself. But if it's going to go via an attic, and you could do it that way, so you can come out the other space. What is important though is that normally the network fibre will always go anti-clockwise, and whatever we do is always going to go clockwise. So it can go that way and go clockwise, or it could come through here and go clockwise. If you're going to run it inside the house, we do have special connectors which are rare as hen's whatsits, but I've got one. Don't tell Barn I've got these though. But this is a 5 to 7, so we've got 5mm, which is 7mm, which is this. So that will connect onto there in the same way. These ones, strangely, don't have that cover, so they don't have a cover like that. These ones just are as they are, but sometimes it may well have been you've gone up the side wall just into the attic, and then just inside you'd swap it and push 5mm on, carry on with that to wherever you want. And then instead of fitting this, because this has only got a limited length, what you're going to do instead is ask Barn for some blank boxes. So you get some blank boxes, there's nothing in it, you get some of the screws and the ties, put the tie on the back. As long as that feeds either A, it can come up and there is a tie space in the back of there, or it can come through, and that's how I've set this one up, and it could tie up to go there, and then we'll blow the fibre through the system, through the outside box, through that bit that we said go up the wall. It's gone into the attic, it's come through here and it's popped up there, and we fuse the actual connection on the end of the fibre in the box. So that could be for some more unusual requests, could be an alternative way around. There is a different size box we have to this that will take up to 6 connections. It might do with slightly more than that. In some instances we have another chamber and we put a bullet in it, but there is a bigger box than this that what we do is we put, normally the feed in from the network might have 12 fibres in it, and they're all colour coded. It's quite a complicated set of colour codes. In fact, you can have a 24 one which has got 12 colours and then the same 12 colours with little black dots on, which is absolutely, my word, you need your best glasses on. But if it's got a 12 core coming in, then it just splits that you'd have a fibre coming down from one flat, another from another flat, maybe some across. I've got a block of 4 flats. I'm doing this next week. I've already started it, and that one, they come into an understairs service area. It comes up a floor and goes through to 2 flats, and it carries on to the next 2 flats. If you've been trained on one of our, and we've come up and do a training course with it, you were covered by Barn Insurance.
Okay.
So yes, we would help sort that out. If I allow 2 hours to do it on my own. If there's 2 of you, you should be able to do it a bit quicker. But never underestimate looking after the customer. So never underestimate the inspecting the house, the checking what they want. It's their house, it's their little castle, so you've got to be...
We've got to have time for tea and cake.
Oh yeah. Oh, tea and cake. Or bacon butties. Yeah, I've got one house we go to for gingerbread. We have another one that occasionally get bacon butties. The gingerbread house. What else do we get? I've had one that had dams and gin, which was even better, but it was the end of the shift. We didn't do any more. So. Some groups, and my host group was Levens, and we've been going about 5 years. We managed to get some grant via the parish council. There was a charity fund they administer, and we were able to get a lump of money from them to help buy. We bought a printer for doing leaflets, and we bought our first drills, some drill bits and pieces, extra screws, plugs. So we got some bits and pieces from there. Myself, I'm doing it also as a contractor, so I bought most of this self. This is mine, so to speak. It's worthwhile having one of those. These you can probably borrow but you get them in packs. Just ask an electrician who's got a spare one. I've gone to a couple of places and people have given me extra ones.